Hello, sir. How are we?
Welcome back to the Historyology podcast, the podcast that has, might just cut that. I was going to say increased in views, or increased in subscribers by 2 since we last spoke, but I might just edit this bit out. It's
Currently 5 stars. Nobody's contested it, so it must be true. Just like history.
I think we might be the only 5-star rated podcast on all of Spotify.
I'm just waiting for being Woolies or something one day. I'm just no worries. Thank you very much. And the cashier turns around and goes, "Are you from the Historyologist podcast?"
Is it too early to get a business card that it's just like Historyology 5-star podcast?
Or it's a snapshot in time, before either of our wives listen to it and give it an honest review.
Today we've got very exciting news. We are talking of one of the stories of history. This is a man that existed in history, and we will be relaying his story in a historical manner.
Not overwhelming, not underwhelming, just perfectly whelming.
He's a man that lived and then died.
Presumably.
Yeah.
The story doesn't say that.
It's not Jesus. Or Muhammad or anyone like that. We are talking about the great man, Hanno of Carthage.
The navigator himself.
Yes. Now, you might have to give a bit of context here because I'm not fully up to date on Carthaginian history.
Yep.
But I think every second bloke is named Hanno.
Or Hannibal.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. No, it was about 600 BC. 600 before anything interesting happened, I guess, from the Christian perspective.
Is that what BC means? Before interesting.
Well, you'd be familiar with Tyre. Famously... yeah. No.
I went straight to a card.
Okay.
Yes, okay. History, that's right.
History.
Tyre. I think sometimes people... No, we call it Tyre as it's spelled, as it's pronounced in English. Tyre. The city on the coast of the Mediterranean, in modern Lebanon.
Lebanon and Israel and stuff like that.
Yeah, gotcha.
There are, Tyre, famously an island, until Alexander came along and went, "Lol, no, not anymore, ha 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 ha." But anyway, so Tyre, I'd just like to say first as well, this could blow up in our face. I've accidentally put the tiniest little bit of research into this, which will probably give away...
That really goes against the grain of this podcast, doing research.
Well, there's 18 lines, so I figure if we can't do that, then...
18 lines of research, or
18 lines of history.
That's the outcome of your research, 18 lines.
Copy and paste. No. But yeah, no, there are... Carthage was originally a trading port set up by the Phoenicians who lived in Tyre. So they're more from that Middle Eastern kind of mold. We're not, not Greek or, it's not Hellenistic. They had, all of those evil-sounding gods like Moloch and Baal and Yam. So,
But it would have been a bit of a mishmash, right? Because, the Phoenician alphabet, that translated over to the Greek one and, so on, and that's pretty much what we use to this day.
Yeah, well... I'm certainly not going to disagree with that, because I don't know otherwise. Probably start with saying that, Hanno, the tale is called The Voyage of, Hanno, King of the Carthaginians. But it's probably not a king, because it was translated by Greeks afterwards. It was probably like a magistrate. I mean, he could have been a king. Who knows? But
maybe the Greeks just thought a magistrate and a king were the same thing.
Exactly. So
democracy and all that. Once you switch from monarchy to democracy, do you just forget what it is what it's like to have a king?
Yeah. Well,
you just forget the idea of the concept. It's like, man, a magistrate, is that Is that like a king, or is that just some guy? Like, what?
I mean, it's one of those really arrogant things to say. It's like, well, they say this, but they probably mean that. And it's like, well, who the fuck are you? Were you there? So, anyway, so this story comes from, it's basically a logbook from Hanno's journey across the west coast of Africa, through the Pillars of Hercules. And it's sort of would have been inscribed on stone in whatever palace or building, whatever. And then the Greeks have translated it, presumably before the Romans came along and decided that Carthage just, shouldn't exist anymore.
And so if you voyaged out beyond the Pillars, which is like sort of leaving the Mediterranean into the Atlantic, the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean, possibly passing by Atlantis on the way. And then because I don't want to give it away, but he headed down south. Would this be like one of the earliest of such voyages we know about?
Well, it's the earliest one you have documentation for, although there is a sort of an implication in the text that, they arrive at a place that they've sort of been to before, they know by name.
Right,
so maybe there's a trading post sort of around, but Hanno's probably the first one to go as far as he did. And interestingly, after Hanno's, his logbook and his, little adventure, nobody documents themselves going down the west coast of Africa until the Portuguese do it 2,000 years later. Now, I'm not saying, no one did it, just nobody fucking wrote it down.
Yeah.
So Hanno gets the credit.
And the locals couldn't write. They just didn't know how.
No, not at all. And
they didn't have the technology.
Or the imagination.
I'm just imagining like King Musa, the rich gold grade, and he's like, I've got it's in my head, but I just can't get it on the paper.
Just how? And so I guess we'll start with, and just say Libya. That's just Africa. That's just what they refer to it, So if that comes up, it's,
To the Carthaginians, when they said Libya, they meant Africa.
Yeah, and by Carthaginians, I mean probably Greeks in the translation. So, who knows? So it starts with, it pleased the Carthaginians that Hanno should voyage outside the Pillars of Hercules and found cities of the Lithophocians and set forth with 60 ships of 50 oars and a multitude of men and women to the number of 30,000 and with wheat and other provisions. So right,
he set off with 60 ships on an unknown voyage.
Yeah. Literally just men and women, 30,000 of them, right? And it's like with the goal of we're going to go this way and we're going to be dropping off you guys in random spots. Probably never going to see you again. You need to found cities. Best of luck.
Good luck.
Hopefully we hear from you again. But, it's like an entire football stadium just sort of being like, all right, we're going that way. Boys.
See you, it's one of the sailors, see your family, when will I see you again, Daddy? In time.
Yeah. I'm going out to buy a packet of ancient cigarettes. See you soon, son. I guess the next bit's, after passing through the Pillars, we went on and sailed for 2 days' journey beyond where we founded the first city, called Thomantium, probably, and it laid in the midst of a great plain. Again, that's just dropping people off, and one of the things that I suppose I forgot to mention earlier is they would have had these ships are designed for the Mediterranean, a tideless sea, so they would have had flat bottoms and whatever, and all of a sudden you're heading into the Atlantic. It must be every moment of every day is just kind of oh shit.
Did it, because I know you said that it sort of implied that they're going somewhere that they may have already been.
Yeah.
And the first part of that story didn't really give much away as to why they're going. Do we know why they're going on this voyage?
Well, generally speaking, the Phoenicians from Tyre, and then Carthaginian, and so by extension, they they're a mercantile kind of people. So like Carthage got all of its riches basically not from wandering backwards into the Sahara and like conquering sand. It was like it was trade, So I imagine it's like trading posts around around the coast. So once something's established, then you can move goods backwards and forwards. And
I mean they must have known that there was something beyond the Sahara, because presumably there would have been like trade caravans every now and then, or of like desert folk or something, sort of trading whatever on their camels and trekking across the desert.
Well, genuinely, probably, but I don't know. They get pretty surprised later in the text when they sort of run into black people, which is like, whoa. so
hopefully it wasn't nighttime when they. Maybe that's why they were so surprised. Like, oh, didn't see you there.
Oh fuck, a pair of teeth and floating eyes. That may or may not be cut.
Yeah, but would we be considered a podcast of our size? Would that be a cancelable sentence? Can we be cancelled? Is what I'm asking. Like, if you already don't have an audience, can you be cancelled?
Yes. I mean, it's if a tree falls in the woods, there's no one there to say, did it happen?
Yes, it did happen.
Well, when you collapse, it'll collapse the wave function. But just casually mention like, thank you for the beer, sir. Just no biggie. Just dropped in, just stopped here for the day, established a new city. Let's move on. Woo! And like this is the bit that I was talking about earlier, where I think they must have sort of had an idea about sort of what was beyond the Pillars of Hercules, or Strait of Gibraltar, if you prefer. Because the next bit is, sailing thence towards the west we came to Solace, a promontory of Libya bristling with trees. And, I mean, the place is named, so maybe that was already an established, maybe not Carthaginian trading post, but, just a spot where they're like, oh, shit, these guys, how you doing? And they're like, whoa. Again, like 30,000 people on boats, like, oh, fuck. We're not going to feed you all. Yeah, so the next bit is, having set up an altar here to Poseidon, we proceeded again going forwards east for half the day until we reached a marsh lying no great way from the sea, thickly grown with tall reeds. Here were also elephants and other wild beasts feeding in great numbers.
Yeah.
So, it says Poseidon, but it definitely wasn't Poseidon. That's the Greeks would have just gone like, oh, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, stupid barbarian.
Yeah, it's obviously Poseidon. It also, like, when they say like a day's east, I doubt they've passed the Horn of Africa yet. So like, does that mean a river? Or, I've seen someone else saying like perhaps they you thought that maybe, like, if it was a river, that was, like, the end of the Nile. Because obviously they didn't know where the Nile was, but knowing what crocodiles and hippopotamuses are and,
Yeah. It might have been because there are some big rivers on the... Because I'm right in thinking that they sort of went down the west coast.
Yep.
Around that sort of bump. So there are some, like, pretty big rivers along there.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, I presume so. I'm not even a historiologist. And also the implication of, maybe it's like, you stop for the day and, obviously with these boats in being Mediterranean based, it's not like you just, put anchor down and sleep there. It's like you'd be dragging that boat onto shore and staking it out, at the end of the day. So maybe like, sort of like let the boys have a little bit of an explore of the place. Like, oh shit, what's over there? Like, oh fuck, hippopotamuses. Fuck, you got them too? Damn. Like, oh, crocodiles. Whew.
You know how when eventually, many centuries later, when Europeans started to make similar voyages and they all started dying of malaria, did it say anywhere in here of anything like that, or
no,
the judgment from Zeus or something that
No, but I mean, they do start getting fucking bit scared and, you know, running. There's a bit of running away and shit later on, but as far as disease and stuff goes, I don't think there's sort of any mention or, you know, perhaps there was, and the people who were writing it down were just like,
One last sentence. Oh no.
It's just like, oh, he must have died, you know, mid-sentence, because the sentence ends with, Anyway, going beyond the marshes, a day's journey, we settled cities by the sea, which we called Caracas, Muros, Gitica, Arica, Melita, and Arembais, which none of those I pronounced properly, but just casually mentioned that, like, yeah, just 5, 6 cities, boom.
Yep, done.
Done. On to the next thing. See you guys.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
You know, I don't know how quickly they built cities back then, but I'm imagining just a couple of huts in a sort of on the beach somewhere.
I mean, fucking probably not even like yeah, okay, maybe in a couple of weeks if they're lucky, but like genuinely, it's just like, I don't know, drop a couple of 100 people off on the beach and be like, good luck.
You're the mayor. You're in charge of this.
It's like, oh man, I wanted to be a cobbler. Stupid fisherman.
There's people that are the founders of these cities, you know, and they're they're like, oh man, my life sucks in Carthage. I'm a stupid idiot. I'm a shoe shiner and I'm sick of it. So I'm going to start my new life over here. Then, you know, go on this big, huge journey and then finally get there like, yes. It's like, your assigned job, shoe shiner.
But it definitely would have been like, I mean, all right, well, no, I can't say for fact, but I mean, like with all of this shit, it's like...
We can say for fact.
You're right, I'm sorry. It's my self-doubt is showing. But, I mean, it's like young men as adventurers. Like, I imagine, like, this journey would have been like, you know, Hanno, yes, it's, I mean, government-sanctioned sort of adventure, but it's like, you know, on the town square, you know, put the note there, it's like, looking for the lads, you know, looking for adventure, you know, fucking... take a card and call this number.
Yeah.
Be here on this day and fucking say goodbye to everyone because you're not coming back.
But even when, because I think that's true. And even when, you know, back then especially, but even into relatively modern times, I'd say, even if you knew where you were going, like let's just say a ship was setting off from Rome to Alexandria or something.
Yeah.
Obviously, they know where to go. It's a well-travelled sea route. It still would have been a bit of a, you know, it's like, hey, we're looking for guys to man the oars. Yeah. And it's like, oh, yeah, cool. Like, you know, it might have had the same allure for young blokes, let alone going somewhere where it's like, you know, you got no idea what's there.
You know, and you'd have, like, second sons as well, you know, like, I'm just assuming that, you know, inheritance and stuff was sort of similar in Carthage. But, I mean, it's, you know, the second, third, fourth... It's just the extra, like, you send them off to...
I hear that. I don't think peasants would have had much inheritance, like.
No.
What's my inheritance, pup?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a couple of stale bits of bread over there.
I've got this rusty pitchfork that my great-great-grandfather, who also only lived 50 years ago, because we only lived to, like, you know, 24...
What's my inheritance, mother? I had syphilis when you were born.
Gotcha! Sailing thence, we came to Lixus, a great river flowing from Libya. By it, a wandering people, the Lixitas, were pasturing their flocks, with whom we remained a time and became friends. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Friendly relations.
Yeah. And they named the people, so I mean, whether they were aware of them before or they were like, "Hey, we're the Lixie Bobos," you know.
Yeah. What's your name? Maybe they were going like Lixie Bobos and in their language that means get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, you fuck off.
And they're like Lixie Bobo. That's what you call yourself. I like it. You're so friendly. Like.
Oh, these guys. I would just hang around for a time.
Oh, you know, what a lovely gift, this spear that you've thrown at my feet. That's amazing.
Oh, the craftsmanship, like, oh, look at you guys. But it's just sweet, you know, he was just like, yeah, we remained some time becoming friends.
Yeah.
And I've got a little note underneath it. It was like, historians have no fucking idea who these people are or where they're located. It's just, this is the only time they're ever mentioned, and it's just like,
Yeah.
bless them, but I guess they didn't write anything down that survived.
Historians have no idea. But we, being historiologists, can say for certain that they were in fact located in Africa.
I'm comfortable with that level of certainty. Now, before I read the next one, I'd just like to say that so Ethiopians, not the modern day country of Ethiopia, but the term Ethiopian is Greek for burnt-faced men. So it's their kind of PC way of saying, like, there be black people.
Well, yeah.
From a Mediterranean perspective, like, you know, I mean,
it's hard to square a literal interpretation of the burnt-faced men. That's kind of hard to you know.
Cruising down the coast, and you look over and there's like, you know, a bunch of kids sort of playing, you know, basketball, and, you know, it's just you know, it's like, you know, they're sitting, they've got a bit of rhythm going. It's
Eating
like,
chicken.
Eating chicken. It's like, oh, grape drink or purple drink. Also probably getting cut out. But yeah, so above these folks lived an unfriendly Ethiopians. That's even worse after what I just said. Dwelling in a land full of wild beasts and shut off by great mountains, from which they say the Lyxus flows, and on the mountains men live with men of various shapes, cave dwellers who, so the Lyxus say, are fleeter on foot than horses. So it's kind of saying that, like, so these burnt-faced people living in a land full of wild beasts at the edge of the river run faster than horses, which,
I mean,
you know,
it fits with what we know about Africans.
it's just Usain Bolt, just like,
Yeah.
watch my speed. But I mean, it's certainly not like they're not degrading these guys. They're just like, they're unfriendly, and they fucking run faster than horses.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, good observations by Hanno.
Yeah, just like, oh shit, and he's running alongside a horse. So I'm not even guessing. You know, and like, you know, it's, I don't know, it's like the ancient world, like, the Romans sort of come to mind, you know, the Greeks too, like they, you know, you don't kind of degrade your enemies. It's kind of like you tend to big your enemies up a little bit when you're talking about them, because it's like, even if, you know, you don't get along with these people, it's just like if you know,
yeah, because then it's like even more impressive that you overcame them.
Exactly. So, like, you know, these guys might have been unfriendly, but at the same time, it's like, man, they just run faster than horses.
Yeah, because I think the Romans especially, but I think a lot of ancient, they get themselves a little bit tongue-tied, where they're like, especially when it comes to barbarians, they're like, you know, these guys they're the big bads, you know, and they're like these demonic people that, you know, you wouldn't want to be standing within 10 feet of them and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, they're really impressive warriors, so that when we beat them, it's, you know, what a great achievement by us. Like,
so nobody else could have fucking stopped them. You know,
it's like, these guys are the scum of the earth, but we beat them and we did such a good job.
Yep. Well, with this next bit, I mean, they can't have been too unfriendly. I mean, actually, they could have been, and this could have just been describing a kidnapping, but the next bit is taking interpreters from them. We sailed 12 days towards the south along a desert, turning thence towards the east, and 1 day sail. There, with the recess of a bay, we found a small island having a circuit of 15 stander. Know what that is? No idea at all. Which we settled and called Cern. From our journey, we judged it to be situated opposite Carthage, for the voyage from Carthage to the Pillars and thence to Cern was the same. So, I think that's really cool, because they would have had a... you know, I'm not necessarily saying that they did or didn't know the world was, you know, round or anything like that, but like when they say, you know, this place must be opposite Carthage, it's like, well, if it's 6 days from Carthage to, you know, the Pillars of Hercules, and then it's another 6 days, you know, to where they are, it's like, I guess it's, you know, on a flat map, I kind of guess that's what they're getting at. No, it's just, okay, so what, this is 12 days now. We've set up like 8 cities along the way, like...
Hey, They're fast builders. What can we say?
And, I love the implication of, taking interpreters from them. And where the last one was, they were unfriendly. It's like, well, what was it? Did they accompany you or not?
Maybe once the interpreters learnt the Carthaginian language, they were just like, yeah, we don't like you. It's like, that's what you've been saying this whole time.
Well, thank goodness we've got you here to clear that up. The next bit is, thence sailing by a great river whose name was Cheretes, we came to a lake which had 3 islands, larger than Cern. Running a day's sail beyond these, we came to the end of a lake, above which rose a great mountain, crowded by peoples of savage men wearing skins of wild beasts, who threw stones at us and prevented us from landing our ships. So, kind of like Heart of Darkness kind of thing, like, so as I sort of said before, like, you'd have to probably drag your ship onto shore at the end of the day, and everyone sort of sets up and whatever, but it sounds like they've rocked up to, this spot, and then just the natives in the jungle or on the beach just fucking not having a lick of it. It's like, get out of here, you! Get out! Shoo! Which, I mean, fair enough, and, like, good thing they had that interpreter there to interpret what these people meant by throwing rocks at them. Otherwise,
They too don't like you. Thanks, mate.
But, there's a thing that Drake and Captain Cook and, what a lot of sort of later explorers did, and I presume it was a similar sort of relationship here where, they'd know the people's on the beach, there were people on the beach they hadn't made contact with, but they'd, maybe go onto the beach and they'd put a bunch of stuff and then they'd run off.
Yeah, nick off.
And then wait for someone to come out and maybe they'd put some stuff there and take something away and whatever they deemed as a fair exchange. So, I can sort of just see our boys, our valiant adventurers sort of rocking up and being like, fuck yeah, do this and, and you put the stuff there and everyone's just like, no, get out of here. Shoot, we're not having any of this. On they sailed. Sailing thence, we came to another river, very great and broad, which was full of crocodiles and hippopotami. And then we turned around and went back to Cern.
That's it. They saw the crocs and they were like, that's as far as we're going.
We're just going to go and fucking let, this good dude back that we dropped off at Cern. He was certain we weren't going to see crocodiles on this journey, and there's like, I'm going to prove him wrong. Just circling back a couple of days just to make a point. Thence we sailed towards the south 12 days, following the shore, which was peopled by Ethiopians, so just more black people. Burnt-faced people. Who fled from us and would not wait, and their speech the Lixtais translators who were with us could not understand. So, again, it's just sort of seeing burnt-faced people again and being like, whoa. And, so obviously these guys just weren't having a lick of it. But, on they went. But on the last day we came to a great wooded mountain, of woods of the trees, the wood of the trees was fragrant and of various kinds. So, I don't know, I'm picturing like a, just heading around the Horn of Africa-ish sort of area now. You've got a bit of jungle.
Yeah.
It's nice, like, it's quite, aromatic, like, nice flowers.
Probably smelling cinnamon.
Yeah.
Probably not, but...
Fucking roasted. And then our boys wandered on from this, from this nice spot. Like, nice smelling flowers. Nice. But, sailing around these mountains for 2 days, we came to an immense opening of the sea, from either side of which there was a level ground inland, from which at night we saw fire leaping up on every side at intervals now greater, now less. Do you think that might be?
Like a fire party, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some of that coming up, so it might be a bit confusing. It's like either it's like they're describing like a volcano, or there's like at night they can see bonfires. But I'll hold that thought. I'll read the next bit and then see what you think. Having taken in water there, we sailed along the shore for 5 days until we came by a great bay, which our interpreter said was called the Horn of the West. In there was a large island. Within that island, a lake of the sea, in which there was another island, sounds like a Russian nesting doll. Sort of thing.
Violence, yeah.
Landing there during the day, we saw nothing but forests, but at night many burning fires, and we heard the sounds of pipes and cymbals, and the noises of drums, and a great uproar. Then fear possessed us, and the soothsayers commanded us to leave the island. So, genuinely, that sounds fucking awful. So, like, you know, you've set up for the night, and you're just sort of there, and you hear, like, ah! Sort of screams in the in the distance, and, like, fires on the horizon, and, you know, everyone's banging drums, and just sort of like, yeah, this is a bad omen.
And it'd be completely pitch black as well. Like,
completely.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever walked through, say, like a thick forest or jungle or something in the dark.
Yeah.
But, like, you can't see anything. You can't even see the stars half the time. It's so...
Because of the canopy and...
Yeah. It's pretty nerve-wracking.
I mean, I couldn't... I mean, I can imagine it, obviously, but, you know, like, I absolutely would not want to be in the position, you know, you're sort of sitting in the bay, you know, all your boys... You know, like, yeah, it's dark and, you know, they might be having a little drink or, you know, playing dice or whatever the Carthaginians... Monopoly, I mean, I don't know. Who knows, you know?
Yeah.
But then you're just sort of, like, trying to sit there, you know, keep composed and sort of just in the distance, you just... Dum, 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 dum. Like, okay, we're going first thing in the morning, boys. And then quickly sailing forth, we passed by a burning country full of fragrance, from which great torrents of fire flowed down to the sea, but the land could not. But we could not land because of the heat. So that sounds like they've run into a volcano.
Yeah,
we're seeing an active volcano just sort of spewing lava into the sea.
Yeah, pretty cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely, especially at night. You know, you just have that glow.
Yeah,
you know. Then we sailed along with all speed, being stricken by fear. After a journey of 4 days, we saw the land at night, covered with flames, and in the midst there was a lofty fire, greater than the rest, which seemed to touch the stars, and by day this was seen to be a high mountain, and we called it the Chariot of the Gods. So
sounds like a volcano.
It sounds like a volcano.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a little bit of... I think they're describing the similar thing a couple of times.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they're banging on about it a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, we get it. You've seen a volcano.
Just like, whoa. You know, and I don't know, I've heard other people on YouTube, I guess, say that, like, you can kind of work it out to be there being, you know, one or two volcanoes along the coast that this could be. And I think one of them erupted in, like, the 1920s. And the descriptions of the people who, you know, saw that, it's pretty much the same. Like, it was just, you know, going off into the sea and stuff. So at least there's one bit that, you know, Hanno didn't fucking make up, probably. Thence sailing along by the fiery torrents for 3 days, we came to a bay called the Horn of the South. Nice, sure.
Yep, good job.
Yep.
Made it.
Glad they wrote that down. And finally, the last bit in the story, my personal favourite. In the recesses of this bay, there was an island, like the former one having a lake, in which there was another island, full of savage men. So again, it's a Russian nesting doll full of islands.
Yeah.
But it was full of savage men. There were women too, in even greater number. They had hairy bodies, and the interpreters that we had called them gorilla. When we pursued them, we were unable to take any of the men, for they had all escaped by climbing steep places and defending themselves with stones. But we took 3 of the women, who bit and scratched their leaders, the Carthaginians, and would not follow us. So we killed them, flayed them, and brought their skins back to Carthage, for we did not voyage further, provisions failing us. So what do you make of that, Tristan?
Well, why'd they call them gorillas? Did they?
Well, that's where we get the word gorilla from today.
I'm imagining that they somehow mistook a human group of people for gorillas.
I think that's exactly it. And you know, I love like even the translator or the interpreters there. They were just like, yeah, those are gorillas.
Well, if this is the reason why we call the animal gorilla the gorilla,
Yeah.
what does gorilla mean? Because it must have meant something.
Must have meant something. I think maybe like a tribal name, like these are the gorilla people,
Yeah.
sort of thing. But like, you know, just sort of like there's a wonderful kind of like, I mean, obviously so we killed them, flayed them, and brought their skins to Carthage. Just a little bit, you know.
It's a little bit salty. They were not, that's throwing the toys out of the cot.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah, but like I'm thinking as well, like, you know, the Carthaginians, you know, they would have been very familiar with the Egyptians, and sort of like, you know, you get like your dog-headed people over here, and like on the edge of the map, you know, dragons be here, and
Yeah.
you know, all that sort of crap. So like in this sort of magical world that they're kind of, you know, working through, they're just another sort of people. They're just like, you know, just a bunch of Carthaginians, you know, rocking up on the beach, trying to communicate to these gorilla in the same way as they've done with like the Ethiopians and stuff in, you know, previous parts of the journey. And then like the gorillas just being not having any of this, like, go away, you know, like. And then like the Carthaginians being like really frustrated after a couple of hours of just like, all right, whatever, we were not going to be able to bring any of them home, just fucking kill 3 of them, and we'll just, because otherwise no one's going to believe this.
But we'll take them back to Carthage just to show what the spoils of our journey.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, for we did not voyage further, provisions failing us. Like, job's done here, boys. But yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to say, there you have it, the voyage of Hanno the Navigator, who navigated beyond the pillars and down to somewhere in Africa.
Probably maybe around the Horn of Africa to the Congo, because he was describing rainforest and sort of jungly bits and gorillas, but
and then voyaged back to make sure someone in Carthage carved this whole thing in stone somewhere.
It's funny, like presumably, you know, these skins that would have been sort of like hung up, sort of on display, and so you know people could look at them and go like, "Whoa," you know. That's they would have been there right up until the Romans were like, "Nope." You know what? You know, fool me once, fool me twice, but no, Third Punic War. Nope. Off you go. But yeah, it's
Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to add on Hanno's voyage?
What a fucking grand adventure. You know, I love it. And just the simplicity of just like, yeah, and then we voyaged home. That was it. Don't worry about it.
And I will say that was a story from history.